The atheist may say, maybe your Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was an intelligent person. Don't argue. Continue. The light of the moon, is it its own light or is it a reflected light? So the atheist will tell you, previously we thought that the light of the moon was its own light. Recently in science, 100 years back, 200 years back, 300 years back, we came to know that the light of the moon is not its own light, but it is the reflected light. Quran mentions in Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 61. Blessed is he who has made the constellations in the sky and placed therein sun having its own light and moon having a reflection of light, having borrowed light. The Arabic word used for sun is shams. It's always described as siraj or wahaj, meaning a torch or a blazing lamp. The Arabic word used in the Quran for moon is qamar. Its light is always described as munir or nur, meaning borrowed light or a reflection of light. Nowhere does the Quran refer to the moonlight as its own light. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran 1400 years ago? The atheist. Maybe after a long pause he will say, maybe your Prophet, he was extra intelligent. Don't argue. Continue. When I was in school, I passed my school in 1982. I had learned in the subject of science and geography that the sun, though it revolved, it did not rotate about its own axis. The atheist will ask, is this mentioned in the Quran? I will tell him, no, this is what I learned in school. More than 25 years back, this is what I learned in school. But when I read the verse of the Quran in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 33, it says, Huwa allazi khalaqal layl wan nahara. It's Allah who has created the night and the day. Wa shamsa wal qamar, the sun and the moon. Kullun fi falaki yasbahun, each one traveling in orbit with its own motion. The Arabic word yasbahun describes the motion of a moving body, indicating that the sun, besides revolving, it is also rotating about its own axis. And today science tells us that the sun takes approximately 25 days to complete one rotation. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran 1400 years ago, which science has discovered recently, just a couple of decades earlier? When I was in school, I didn't know about this. Now, all the textbooks, they say very clearly that the sun, besides revolving, even rotates about its own axis. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran? And most probably, the atheist, he'll be silent. Don't wait for the reply, continue. Today science tells us that our universe is expanding, which we discovered recently, a couple of 100 years back. Quran mentions in Surah Dhariyat, chapter number 51, verse number 47, that we have created the expanding universe, the vastness of space. The Arabic word musyun. It means the expanding universe, the vastness of space. There may be many critics of Islam who will say it is nothing great that the Quran speaks about astronomy, since the Arabs were advanced in the field of astronomy. And I do agree with them that the Arabs were advanced in the field of astronomy. But I'd like to remind them, it was centuries after the Quran was revealed that the Arabs became advanced in the field of astronomy. So it's from the Quran that the Arabs learned about astronomy and not the vice versa. In the field of hydrology, when we asked the atheist that when did we come to know about water cycling? So he will tell you that Sir Bernard Palissy in 1580 was the first person who described the present water cycle. How does the water evaporate from the ocean? It forms into clouds, moves into the interior, it falls on at rain, and the water cycle is replenished. This water cycle is mentioned in the Quran in great detail 1400 years ago. The Quran mentions too that the water evaporates from the ocean, forms into clouds, the clouds join, then move into the interior, then the water falls down, and the water table is replenished. The Quran speaks about hydrology and the water cycle in great detail in several verses. In Surah Az-Zumur, chapter 39, verse number 21. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 24. In Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 18. In Surah Hijr, chapter number 15, verse number 22. In Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 43. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 48. In Surah Araf, chapter number 7, verse 57. In Surah Ra'd, chapter number 13, verse number 17. In Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 40 and 49. In Surah Fatir, chapter number 35, verse number 9. In Surah Yasin, chapter number 36, verse number 34. In Surah Jasha, chapter number 45, verse number 5. In Surah Qaf, chapter number 50, verse number 9 and 10. In Surah Waqia, chapter 56, verse number 60 to 70. In Surah Mulk, chapter 67, verse number 30. In Surah Tariq, chapter 86, verse number 11. You can quote, only keep on quoting the references. The Quran speaks about the water cycle in great detail. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran 1400 years ago? Don't wait for the answer, continue. The Quran, it speaks about geology, that the mountains have got pegs which give stability to the earth. It's mentioned in Surah Naba, chapter number 78, verse number 6 and 7. In the field of oceanology, we knew there were two types of water, salt and sweet, but the Quran goes ahead and says, in Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 53, it is He who has let free two bodies of flowing water, one sweet and palatable, the other, it is salty and bitter. Though they meet, they do not mix. There is a barrier which is forbidden to be trespassed. And today, we know that this barzakh, what the Quran speaks about, today, those people who are expert in the subject of oceanology, they say this is called as the unseen barrier.